I'm not getting the sound. Hello?
Professor Mukul, we can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me? Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Fine. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Honorable Minister. With your kind permission, can we start the program now?
Yeah, please.
Dr. Prof, please start.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good evening, everybody. It's my proud privilege to welcome you all to the international webinar on India's Act East policy. I extend a cordial welcome to the chief guest of the program, Dr. Rajkumar Ranjan Singh, sir, Honorable Minister of State for External Affairs and Education, Government of India. Guests of honor, Professor Dr. Mukul G. Ashe, former Professor, Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy, National University of Singapore, and Dr. Subhash Chandra Pandey, former Special Secretary, Ministry of Commerce and Industries, Government of India. I welcome on board our Chief Patron, Professor Dr. V.K. Ahuja, sir, Honorable Vice Chancellor of National Law University and Judicial Academy, Assam, our patron, Dr. Ashutosh Mishra, Officer on Special Duty, Delhi School of Public Policy and Governance, University of Delhi, Dr. Diptimoni Boruah, convener of the Bharat Ka Amrut Mahotsav Committee, faculty members, administrators, and students of the university. The international webinar on India's Act East policy is being hosted conjointly by National Law University and Judicial Academy Assam IQSC Cell and Bharat Ka Amrut Mahotsav Committee in collaboration with the Delhi School of Public Policy and Governance, University of Delhi. To lend verve to this exercise, distinguished luminaries from the academia and the public life have joined us, and the same shall enrich the discussion on India's Act East policy with their pedantic insights. It was in November 2014 when India upgraded the Look East policy to Act East policy. However, the essence of the endeavor remains the same, which is to further improve economic, strategic, cultural ties with Southeast Asian region through intensive and sustained engagement in the areas of connectivity, trade, cultural exchange, defense, and people-to-people contact at different levels. Without further fuss and feathers, I request Professor Dr. V.K. Ahuja, sir, Vice Chancellor of National Law University and Judicial Academy, to kindly deliver a welcome address and formally announce the commencement of today's event. Professor Dr. V.K. Ahuja, sir, needs no introduction in respect of his contribution to the field of IPR and international law. Prior to assuming office as Vice Chancellor of this university, he was associated with the University of Delhi, where he has served as Joint Director, Delhi School of Public Policy and Governance, and also as Professor in Charge, Law Center, University of Delhi. Sir, over to you for the welcome address, please.
Thank you, Dr. Chaudhary. Honorable Minister Dr. Rajkumar Ranjan Singh, Minister of State for External Affairs, as well as Minister of State for Education, Government of India. Professor Mukul Esher, former Professor, National University of Singapore. Dr. Subhash Chandra Pandey, former Special Secretary, Ministry of Commerce and Industries, Government of India. Dr. Indranoshi Das, Registrar, National Law University, Assam. Dr. Ashutosh Mishra, OST, Delhi School of Public Policy and Governance. Dr. Diptimoni Boruah, Mr. Sahib Chaudhary, Dr. Nandrani Chaudhary, respected teachers, colleagues, dear students, participants, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm afternoon. In 1991, the then Prime Minister, Shri P.V. Narasimha Rao, started Look East policy, and then in 2014, the Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, moved to Act East policy. To discuss the transition from Look East policy to Act East policy and beyond, the National Law University, Assam, in collaboration with Delhi School of Public Policy and Governance, University of Delhi, has organized this international webinar. We are proud to have Honorable Minister of State for External Affairs and Education, Government of India, Dr. Rajkumar Ranjan Singh ji, as our chief guest, and the two renowned personalities, Professor Mukul Esher and Dr. Subhash Chandra Pandey, as panelists. On behalf of National Law University, Assam and Delhi School of Public Policy, I welcome the chief guest, Honorable Minister Dr. Rajkumar Ranjan Singh. Who can be a better person to inaugurate this program than Honorable Minister, who belongs to Northeast only? Retired as professor from Manipur University, Honorable Minister was a member of the Consultative Committee for Donor. We welcome you, sir. I also welcome our guest of honor, Professor Mukul Esher, the former professor, Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy, National University of Singapore. Professor Mukul Esher, an eminent academician, is an established name in the area of public policy. Professor Esher has been working consistently on the issues relating to Indians' public policy. So he's in Singapore for last more than 4 decades, but is working continuously on the Indian public policy matters. We welcome you, sir. I also welcome our second guest of honor, Dr. Subhash Chandra Pandey, former Special Secretary, Ministry of Commerce and Industries, Government of India. Dr. Pandey, a former bureaucrat, has been writing extensively on the issue of public policy. He is also guiding Delhi School of Public Policy and Governance, University of Delhi, on a regular basis. And it is a matter of pride that both Professor Mukul Esher and Dr. Subhash Chandra Pandey are member of the governing body of Delhi School of Public Policy and Governance, University of Delhi. We welcome you, sir. With these words, I welcome all teachers, students, participants who found time out of their busy schedule to attend this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for rendering the prolocution to the program. Moving on, I have the privilege to invite Dr. Diptimoni Boruah, convener of the Bharat Ka Amrut Mahotsav Committee of National Law University and Judicial Academy, Assam. Ma'am is currently working as an associate professor of the university and is primarily engaged in teaching the postgraduate course. Prior to joining National Law University, Assam, Dr. Boruah was engaged with the Department of Law of reputed universities of the region, including Guwahati University, University of Dibrugarh, and many other renowned institutions. I call upon ma'am to deliver the introductory speech to the international webinar. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, madam. Well, good afternoon to all dignitaries and participants. Today we are here to deliberate on Government of India's visionary approach, that is Act East policy. India plays a crucial role in international politics. Last 3 decades, India brings some revolutionary changes in its diplomatic relation. As a part of it, India has adopted a new regional diplomatic policy by giving special focus on neighboring states. Although India's relations with the Southeast Asian countries were old and historical, the advantage was not given by the government of India in policy making process. At the end of the Cold War period, it brought a major shift in the economic and strategic policies for most of the countries in Asia and compelled to make the suitable policy changes to cope with the changing economic and security situation in the region. India has no exception. To respond to new challenges, in 1991, India adopted a Look-East policy to re-engage India with Southeast Asia. Look-East policy has culminated into new phase under the Prime Ministership of Honorable Prime Minister right now, Narendra Modi, who received the Act-East policy Look-East policy to Act-East policy to mark a significant shift towards more proactive and pro-action-oriented approach towards the Southeast Asian region to foster links in all spheres, because this is the fastest growing region of the world to its unparalleled development in security, economic, demographic, and political terms. This policy was meant to extend India's engagement with the Southeast Asian region. It has expanded beyond its initial geographical focus on Southeast Asia to cover the broader East Asia and the now Indo-Pacific region. This has expanded to its earlier economic interaction to strategic political defense interaction. The aim of this policy is to cultivate socio-economic, political, cultural, and strategic relations with the Southeast Asian countries in order to strengthen India's position and to avert Chinese dominance from this region. Since the crux of this foreign policy was to revive political ties, strengthen economic linkage, and foster regional security to ensure strategic cooperation with the Southeast Asia, for which Northeast region served as the gateway. In the context of the emerging relations of India with Southeast Asia, role of Northeast region is inevitable, and it would be a pivot of overall Act-East policy. It is expected that Act-East policy is a commendable exercise of Government of India for the development and prosperity of the Northeast region on the one hand, and strengthen the national security on the other hand. Northeast which connects India to all other surrounding nations like Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, and the Association of the Southeast Nations to Myanmar continues to lag behind as compared to other parts of the country. If the success of a regional integration project is to encompass the eventual flurry of the physical connectivity, as such grand vision usually entails, the region come into the focus. Until recently, this region had historically been considered as remote and isolated, is the connecting link to the Southeast Asian region and now identifies its strategic and economic importance. However, actual progress towards this can only happen through the real improvement of the connectivity and movement. It is therefore necessary to assess the real progress and movement that have happened towards realizing this goal, and the hurdles are yet to be overcome so that Act-East policy does not become just another ineffective catastrophe or slogan meant only for raising the expectation of the people for political purposes. For true transformation and integration of this Northeast into the economic map of the world, effective implementation of this policy is indispensable. However, amidst the uproar for economic development, progress, and connectivity, we must also remember that the Northeast region is also an ecologically sensitive geographical area and has unique cultural practices that requires to spatial protection and promotion. Unregulated economic activity and connectivity could cause serious havoc to its pristine environment that includes many biological hotspots and unique flora and fauna. It could also cause the destruction of the cultural uniqueness of indigenous people of this region. While economic integration is a homogenizing approach, it cannot be at the cost of the unique cultural identity and the pristine environment of this region. All in all, integrating the endeavor to strike a balance between economy, ecology, and cultural identity into the strategic access policy is an urgent requirement. Therefore, it needs to deliberate how Government of India can minimize the gap between the policy formulation and policy implementation and take into consideration entire local dynamics, which will be very crucial for the success of access policy from the perspective of Northeast region. The NLU Assam, as the pioneer educational institute of Northeast region, in collaboration with the Delhi School of Public Policy and Governments, University of Delhi, have made a humble effort to stage this international webinar on Government of India's visionary and ambitious project, access policy, for enlightening deliberation and policy introspection. We are very grateful to have with us Honorable Union Minister of the State for External Affairs and Education, Dr. R.K. Singh, in this deliberation, who can give the clear picture of this policy. I hope that all the participants could enjoy this today's program, and thank you very much. Over to you, Madam.
Thank you so much, Dr. Boruah ma'am, for providing us with a meaningful insight to the topic and its relevance in the northeastern region of the country. Moving ahead, it is my distinct honor to invite the chief guest of today's event, Dr. Rajkumar Ranjan Singh sir, to deliver the inaugural address. However, prior to the address, it is my bounden duty to introduce Sir to the House. Sir is currently a member of the 17th Lok Sabha, representing the inner Manipur constituency of the state of Manipur. He has actively participated as a member of several parliamentary committees on Central Council of Health and Family Welfare, Standing Committee for Science and Technology, Environment and Forests and Climate Change, Consultative Committee for Donor, and Parliamentary Rules Committee. As an academician, Sir has had an illustrious career. He has been actively engaged in several national and international consultative exercises on human resource management, security sector reforms, land and livelihood rights of indigenous peoples, and several such other causes. Sir has several publications to his credit. Importantly, his books and research papers focusing on environmental concerns in Manipur. Sir, we are humbled by your gracious presence amongst us today, and I call upon you to deliver your address to the House, please.
Sir, you are muted. Honorable Minister, you are muted.
Okay. Thank you very much, Vice Chancellor Professor Ahuja ji, Dr. Diptimoni Boruah ji, Co-Speaker Professor Asser ji, Dr. Pandey ji, Dr. Mishra ji, distinguished participant, Namaskar and a very good afternoon. It is indeed a pleasure to join you today, although I must admit that I'm traveling and joining you all from my mobile device. I must extend my apologies in advance for any connectivity issues that may crop up in advance. As you are aware, I have recently assumed my new role as a Ministry of State for External Affairs and Education. I'm happy to exchange views on our Act East policy, relatively fresh in my new role. Indeed, this gathering will give me a good chance to understand what is expected and perceived of India's Act East policy. I look forward to an insightful exchange of views as we execute and implement Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi's vision of Act East policy. Friends, we know that the world has changed very profoundly in the last few decades. New focal point of production, consumption, resources, and markets have emerged, especially in Asia. This shift has thrown up various permutations of possibilities for our progress and betterment. And yet, on the other hand, it has demanded of us to do what is necessary to exploit these opportunities. Prominent among these is the ability to harness our international partnerships for national growth and development. That really means building strong relationships abroad and having the vision, the policies, and the determination to apply those partnerships at home. Assam has long been the bridge between India and the world to our east. For centuries, its natural arteries have facilitated the flow of people, of goods, of ideas, not just to Southeast Asia, but as far as Korea and Japan, creating a seamless connection between Eastern India and Assam and the world to our east. The valley of Brahmaputra, the Sindh, the Irrawaddy were central to that process. The ancient cultural and civilization connectivity is at the heart of India's Act East policy. The origin of Act East policy go back to the 1991 by expanding cooperation with Southeast Asia, with East Asia and Oceania in different dimensions. In 2014, under the guidance of Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, it was given a much wider action-oriented outlook. Today, it includes numerous connectivity projects and activities, as well as economic flows and strategic cooperations. India's strategic partnership with ASEAN stand on a strong foundation of our shared geographical, historical, and civilizational ties. This strategic partnership form the central pillar of our Act East policy. Since millennia, there has been a great flow of people, ideas, and goods between our two regions leaving imprint on our religion, art, architecture, language, literature, cuisines, crafts, and textile, music, dance, and drama. The two biggest religions of Southeast Asia spread from or through Indian subcontinent. The biggest temple of the world is not in India, but in Cambodia. The languages of our two regions share much common lexicon. Indian epic of Ramayana and Mahabharata are as popular in Southeast Asia as they are in India. Almost every country of Southeast Asia has its own version of Ram Lila. Even today, the coronation ceremony of Thai kings is performed with Indian rituals. All these are testimony to our long cultural and civilizational ties. The ongoing effort to strengthen ASEAN's India-Thai built upon this sheer glorious past of ours. ASEANs and India graduated from sectoral partner in the year 1992 to dialogue partner in 1996 to summit level partner in 2002 to finally become strategic partners in 2012. The breadth of our partnership is covered by several dialogue mechanisms cutting across various sectors such as defense, commerce, telecommunication, agriculture, energy, environmental issues, tourism, etc. Presence of all 10 Asian leaders in New Delhi in January 2018 is the culmination of year-long celebration to observe 25th anniversary of ASEAN India Thai testifies the importance both sides accord to our partnership. Development partnership from an important pillar of ASEAN-India relations. India has launched a number of programs and projects for capacity development and enhancing people-to-people connectivity with ASEAN country. In September 2019, India launched thousands integrated PhD fellowship to ASEAN students at our prestigious IITs. The program, with total budget outlay of approximately $45 million, is the simple largest capacity development initiative of India in its partnership with ASEAN and has become very popular in the ASEAN countries. India also provides more than 1,000 scholarships to ASEAN students, both bilaterally and under ASEAN-India track every year at the various universities and institutions. Development corporations also form the mainstay of our sub-regional partnership in the form of Mekong-Ganga Cooperation, which is the oldest mechanism the Mekong sub-region and just celebrate its 20th anniversary in 2020. The Quick Impact Schemes has been the mainstay of our MGC cooperation since 2015. Under QIP, a total of 29 projects have been completed in Cambodia, Laos DPR, Myanmar, and Vietnam so far with India's assistance. QIP focuses on short gestation, high impact, people-centric, socio-economic project. Given our deep civilizational connect, With this region, there are several archaeological sites discovered in the Mekong region, which are of significant historical and cultural importance to India. Some of them have also been recognized as UNESCO World Heritage Site. India has been engaged in the restorations and preservation of numerous such heritage sites in the Mekong region, which include the restoration work at the Ta Phom Temple and the Prit Vihar Temple in Cambodia, Bhat Phao in Laos DPR, My Son Temple in Vietnam, and Ananda Temple in Myanmar. India has also established MGC Asian Traditional Textile Museum in Siem Reap, Cambodia, with the aim of preserving and showcasing the rich and vibrant textile heritage of Mekong Ganga region. As I said before, northeast region of India is our gateway to ASEAN and towards the east. Assam, as a fulcrum of the northeast region of India, has a potential to become a hub and cover our cooperation and collaboration with our neighbors. Greater connectivity to the economic activity in the neighborhood and a ripple impact in areas such as employment and investment in energy and transportation, and even in the movement of people. India's Act East policy recognizes connectivity in the broadest sense as a key component. Talking about waterways, our initiatives are today once again making the Brahmaputra River the primary channel for movement of goods and people. Assam will connect the Himalayas with the Bay of Bengal through inland water connectivity to the main port, there, especially Chittagong and Mongla. We are working to develop the Eastern Waterways Transport Connectivity Grid, which is supported by the World Bank. Work has already begun to use river port like Dhubari and Karimganj to move goods to and from Bhutan and Bangladesh respectively. We are also developing port facilities in Ahuja in Bangladesh to help give southern Assam external connectivity. And we are already dredging stretches of Brahmaputra at Kushihara rivers to increase navigability and facilitate faster trade. Yet, another concept being seriously looked into is greater power grid connectivity in the region. Sale of refined petroleum product from Assam to the larger region is a subject of active interest. A pipeline to supply high-speed diesel to Bangladesh is an important beginning. Similar features project with Myanmar would be interesting. Surface transport is a priority area under connectivity for the region as a whole. Whatever it is, road or rail, we have initiative to expand reach in all directions. They could not only give it a southern access to the sea, but an eastern one that extended into the heart of Southeast Asia. The India-Myanmar-Thailand trilateral highway is at an advanced stage as we look now to construct some missing roads link in the central Myanmar and upgrade bridges in Tamu Kaliwa segment. Studies have assessed the viability of extending It's further from the Thai border through Laos all the way to central Vietnam. The Caladan multimodal transport link, including the Satui port and the Pelwa Island inland water terminal, will add to our access to the Myanmar coastline. Assam also stands to benefit from the activities of a regional organization called BIMSTEC. Its master plan on transport connectivity, and that was finalized last December, envisages 264 projects of different size among all its members, many of them which have direct relevance to Assam. Indeed, through them, the southern and eastern district of Assam will develop the ability to move good produce there cost effective to global market. The aviation infrastructure of the northeastern state is also undergoing an ambitious ramping up. Apart from greenfield project in Itanagar and Pangyong, 11 airports are being modernized, 6 of them in Assam. This can make a big difference to regional connectivity, having the potential to capture traffic from Singapore, Thailand, Myanmar, bringing more tourists to Assam. Under our Act East policy, various development projects are being implemented in the region in collaboration with our partner countries. Japanese development assistance have been one such example, under which projects such as the 20 kilometers long bridge on Brahmaputra between Dhubari in Assam and Fulbari in Meghalaya. Fourth lining of 55 kilometers of National Highway 127B between Srirampur and Dhubari, renovation of Guwahati's South Central and Northern District water works facilities, and the construction of sewage facility in South Guwahati are being undertaken. Apart from these connectivity, the urban development projects, we are also looking at the project in the healthcare sector with Japanese assistance. Before I conclude, let me talk about the initiative in Myanmar, India's land link to ASEAN and the vital component of both India's neighborhood first and Act East policy. Our effort of strengthened connectivity and infrastructure development in Myanmar continue with the Caladan multimodal transport project and the India-Myanmar Thailand trilateral highways. This project, once operationalized, will enhance bilateral connectivity and trade and will bring benefit to the local communities residing on the two sides. Bangladesh has growing relevance for our Act East policy. Today, Bangladesh is India's largest trading partner in South Asia, with a total trade over US $10.78 billion, contributing economic prosperity and supply chain resilience in the regions and beyond. The establishment of border hut has contributed to prosperity in the border areas. Comprehensive connectivity has been a common objective for both sides. We have received 5 out of the 6 pre-1965 rail connectivity link. The remaining one, Mahinshan Karimganj, is also expected to be restored soon. Also, most recently, we inaugurated the Maitri Bridge across River Feni in Tripura which will give additional connectivity for Northeast with Bangladesh. The agreement on the use of Sotagram and Mongla port will facilitate transshipment of goods to and from Northeast to other part of India. A trial run has already been undertaken. The full operation is expected soon. This will reduce logistic costs of good movement to the Northeast, while the existing model have been strengthened. New modes like waterways, passengers and cruise shipping, energy and power line have been added to the connectivity mix. Bangladesh is buying power from Northeast and is facilitating LPG supply to the northeastern state, particularly Tripura. 2 more routes have been added to the India-Bangladesh inland waterways route, which has connected Tripura with India's national waterways through Bangladesh. Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal grouping has emerged as a forum for further enhancing regional connectivity and economic cooperation. Discussion on implementation of motor vehicle amendment are at the advanced stage. More people-to-people connect may open up more opportunity in the Northeast in areas such as tourism, education, health, and commerce. As we are ahead today towards a $5 trillion economy and global pivotal to the Indo-Pacific, it is essential today that we build connectivity all the way from Arabian Sea to the South China Sea, and Assam has a central role to play because it is the Northeast India, our gateway to the East, where the actual manifestation of our Act East policy is most visible. With these few words, thank you for patient listening. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister Sir, for joining us today in spite of your very busy schedule and providing us with enriching perspectives on the instant issue. Sir, we look forward to your physical presence amongst us as and when the prevailing contingencies and your schedule permit. Thank you again, sir. To carry forward the program, I hand over the reins to a very bright and diligent student of our undergraduate program. Over to you, Arunav, to carry the event forward. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. With this, I would like to invite Professor Dr. Mukulji Asher, former Professor Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy from National University of Singapore, to address on the topic, India's Act East policy, its role in developing Northeast as a growth node, and in enhancing the linkages with the Indo-Pacific. Sir is currently a senior fellow for executive education at the Lee Kuan Yew School of Government, National University in Singapore. He is also an advisor to the Mindmakers, a public affairs website which is based in the United States. Sir has also been a consultant and an advisor to several governments in Asia on tax policy and pension reforms, and to multilateral institutions, including the International Monetary Fund, the Asian Development Bank, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the World Health Organization, the Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority of India, the Government of Gujarat, and also the World Bank. Currently, Sir is leading a project for the ERIA, the acronym for the Economic Research Institute for the ASEAN and East Asia, on the role of public finances in the provision of infrastructure in Asia. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Could someone operate my slides, please? Okay. Pranam, namaskar. It is indeed a privilege to be invited to participate in this important webinar on India's Act East policy. We have heard excellent presentations from the minister as well as from Professor Boruah. A lot of ground has been covered. I will try to say more about the Indo-Pacific region and not put as much emphasis now on Northeast, as that has been covered in very extensively by the minister. Next, please. So, area, as you would have gathered on Act East, is very vast. You can only cover selected aspect. So AEP and Indo-Pacific. It has been mentioned that AEP was initiated by Prime Minister Modi, Narendra Modi, in Myanmar in November 2014. The word Act East, is a more positive result-oriented connotation than look east. This is subtle, but very important. This is consistent with the overall governance approach of the government that PM has been leading since 2014. Next, please. AEP represents qualitatively different, ambitious, and integrated approach, more consistent with India's 21st century context as a rising power with its geoeconomics and geostrategic interests than the LEP was. LEP made sense. In 1991, it was a commendable initiative by PM Rao. And if I digress slightly, I think PM Rao has been among our best prime ministers, and he has not received as much credit as he deserves for his leadership and initiatives. Under LEP, India was more focused on introducing market-based reforms domestically. Now, this was the reform period, and on Southeast Asia, specifically on ASEAN, and on Korea and Japan to some extent to expand its international linkages. The main focus of the LEP was trade economic agreements with ASEAN. I was privileged to be in Singapore, and when India was negotiating with Singapore on comprehensive economic cooperation agreement and others, I was privileged to be in occasionally being consulted by the High Commissioner here, by our High Commissioner here, and present my opinions on various aspects of SICA. So the main focus was on this to ASEAN and individually like Singapore. The focus was largely on merchandise trade and on tariffs. India's tariffs in 91 were high. We were to bring it down. It has done us well by bringing it down in a very competent manner. But the emphasis was not on services trade, on non-tariff barriers, implementation, integrity of the agreements. In lot of agreements, the first question that I ask is, who is going to help implement this? And if there are disputes, then how will they be negotiated? And that is very critical. And the second critical part is how much usage of this agreement will be made. Will the businesses and others find this agreement with low compliance costs and therefore highly used, or it will be on paper and very little used? Next, please. Now, what are the key features? So first, AEP is not just focused on merchandise trade agreement on 10 ASEAN countries. As a matter of fact, relative importance of ASEAN today is much less than it was in 1991. Other growth nodes are appearing. ASEAN has done well. It will continue to do well. It will be our partner, but that's not where the main focus is going to be. But on wider economic and strategic engagement involving the Indo-Pacific region. One example from today, as you know, Quad meeting person to person in White House just took place. Quad is India, Australia, India, Japan, and United States, 4 members. Originally, the idea was raised by former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe when he was visiting India about setting up Quad. And I just read the Quad statements that the leaders issued. In many paragraphs, the importance of Indo-Pacific is emphasized by the Quad leaders. So the idea of Indo-Pacific, something that wasn't there in 91, the wordings that were used were Asia-Pacific. And India started wanting to have a greater role for the Indian Ocean, greater exploitation of Indian Ocean for commercial and strategic purposes. And the Indo-Pacific is now becoming a very important concept strategically. Second is connectivity. Physical, digital, cultural, human within India, and with the India's partner in the Indo-Pacific, not just ASEAN. So yes, we have been doing with Myanmar, and we want to extend that to Vietnam, as the minister mentioned. All of that is useful, essential, but we want connectivity in many different areas now with the Indo-Pacific as well. The Quad leaders emphasize, for example, the partnership on vaccines, where India will be the manufacturing hub for the vaccines on behalf of the Quad. Financing will come from Japan and others. They will be distributed, and Quad will act as an entity to try to get the be a part of reduction in vaccine inequality in excess that is occurring in the world. So much larger agenda than what was in LEP. I'm not criticizing LEP as such. It was right for that time, that purpose. I'm just saying that times have changed, and this is what AEP does. The Northeast region. Again, in 91, Northeast region was not given much importance, let alone conscious policy decision to make it a growth node. Northeast has a lot of potential, and the AEP and Northeast, as the minister's statement and as Professor Boruah's remarks, very insightful remarks mentioned, Northeast is a key growth node that will emerge for India. Let me elaborate a little bit on each one of this. Next, please. Okay. This is the India X East, and you can see that the ASEAN region is only one good subcomponent, important subcomponent of it, but we are not confined. We have outgrown ASEAN obsession, and as such, uh, we are now moving much beyond. Next, please. This is the Indo-Pacific region. So AEP, Indo-Pacific region, and Quad are all interrelated. And we are doing integrated economic and strategic diplomacy in these three regions. Next, please. These are the countries that are in the Indo-Pacific, and again, they go beyond ASEAN. Next, please. Speaking at the inaugural session of the first edition of the Indo-Pacific Business Summit, we already have Business Summit for the Indo-Pacific. India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar said, seamless and integrated space was disconnected decades ago. But as many Indian Ocean economies trade farther east, and as Pacific ones too have displayed a presence south and westward, we are quite sensibly seeing the landscape for what it really is. He indicated that Indo-Pacific represents a return of history and reflects the reality of globalization and emergence of multipolarity and the benefits of rebalancing. Now, for the Quad leaders in their first in-person summit to have several times mentioned Indo-Pacific is very significant. Next, please. European Union have also recognized Indo-Pacific. Statement: in the wake of the COVID-19 crisis, the EU will focus on creating the condition for a sustainable and inclusive socio-economic recovery and will work actively with its partners in the following areas. And many of these areas revolve around our AEP objectives: green transition, ocean governance, digital governance and partnership, connectivity, security and defense, and human security. Human security is a broader concept than human skills. Next, please. Next, please. Oh, okay. Let's take the first one. I said that ASEAN, we were more engaged with the trade agreements. So now we have, Indian policymakers have concluded that lack of sufficient reciprocity, this is a new word we must always be emphasizing, in merchandise trade focused agreements with ASEAN. We didn't get enough reciprocity from ASEAN, and that is official finding by the government, as well as with respect to SICA with Singapore, Korea, and Japan. If I may say so, and several provisions on SICA, some of the experts that I was part of were consulted. We were saying, don't do this. And the reply will come, PMO wants it, and we have to do it. So we knew at that time, being in Singapore and looking at the provisions, that some of these were not in our interest at the time. But now it is official, so we are rebalancing. In non-tariff barriers to trade are very important, but we never paid much attention. Issues with rules of origin, insufficient implementation integrity. You can sign the contract, but Are you going to implement with the spirit it is supposed to? And if not, who is going to police it? And in some cases, undue haste on part of India in entering into these agreements have yielded suboptimum results for India. I know at that time, India was very keen officially to have greater integration with Southeast Asia. Indeed, I was a member on behalf of ASEAN countries when India was invited, or it was recommended by us, our group, that India be moved from sectoral to the full dialogue partner of ASEAN. And so there was a lot of activities in the 90s and so on along these lines. Next, please. The policymakers therefore want to address these areas by renegotiating some of these agreements. We are already doing that, but this is a difficult and time-consuming process. Particularly, why would somebody who has a favorable agreement want to renegotiate? So that's understandable, particularly given the current global economic and strategic dynamics. And by expanding the agreement partners to Indo-Pacific and beyond, the intention is to negotiate good quality agreements for Indian national interests, even if it takes time. That's why government is no longer hurrying up. The kind of hurrying up I saw sitting in Singapore, so on in the 90s and so on in our agreement, I don't see it anymore. India has revamped its foreign trade policy to engage with the wider world. So the Commerce Secretary has reported that we are engaged with 20 countries around the world in the FTAs, and we want to access global markets on a balanced basis. It's a code word. That agreement has to be fair, and reciprocity for us and our strength should be there. India is fast tracking FTAs with 6 of them. UAE, UK, Australia, Canada, and EU over the next few months. So you can see how India's interests are expanding. There's a report that India and UAE plan to get bilateral trade level to 100 billion USD in 5 years via new pact. And to give you some idea, India's trade with ASEAN was about half of that, 50 billion. So we'll continue to work on ASEAN, continue to expand, but continue to have more opportunities elsewhere. He also stated that unlike India's past experience, all FTAs will be looked at carefully so that there are adequate gains for the country. Implicit admission to what I have been saying. If India wants to be a global trading partner, it needs to have FTAs and do it in a balanced manner, which allows it to be a player. The gains have to be balanced, and this is where the Indian policy is moving. Next, please. Ministry of Commerce has undertaken major drive to identify and penetrate 31 commodities through 200 countries with a targeted USD 400 billion exports for FY 2022, laid down a roadmap for 1 trillion USD goods exports alone and 700 billion in services exports by FY 28. The first 5 months of 21-22, April to August, show that we are well on our way to attaining the 400 billion target. But the target will become more and more challenging as we want to approach 1 trillion. Next, please. Services are different, by the way. Another widening of area under AEP are the services. The Commerce Minister has emphasized service cooperation in the Indo-Pacific as part of AEP. Speaking at special plenary with trade ministers of the Indo-Pacific region, he said, given the prospects of services trade, an Indo-Pacific-wide services trade agreement should also be considered among friendly nations. It can help liberalize domestic regulation, build capacity on e-commerce, digital economy, IT-enabled services, artificial intelligence, and others. So again, broadening of India's interest. Next, please. There are also parallel security dimensions which fit into the AEP agenda. The most recent is the AUK-US, Australia-UK-US Pact. And the three leaders unveiled it and said that AUKUS is also about ensuring we have capabilities that contribute along with India and other countries to deterring the types of behavior that threatens the peace and security in the Indo-Pacific today and in the future. So Indian officials were informed, they were briefed, and so on. So there is going to be close connection between AEP, Indo-Pacific, Quad, and the AUKUS. All these should be looked at in a complementary way, and that makes the thing very complex. Next, please. Only 6 nations currently operate nuclear power submarines, and all 6 have civilian nuclear power industries. Australia joining this club makes a dramatic break with this historic note. So Australia will be doing the nuclear submarines as part of the Indo-Pacific security under the AUKUS program. Next. India could consider separate dimensions of strategic security arrangements, which now include not just military hardware and software, but also minerals and metals, which are integral to the digital economy and to the renewable energy production to adapt to and mitigate climate change. So we need now the mineral and metals. That will be part of our AEP, part of the Northeast development as well. In some parts, for example, there are plans to make Northeast a hub or at least a one center for palm oil production and rubber production. So palm oil and natural rubber, which both of us we import on a very large scale, Northeast can help fill part of the India's demand and thereby make us more competitive and increase our leverage with the rest of the world, including with Southeast Asia. Next, please. AEP and India's stock markets suggestion. The next slide suggests that as of 17th September, can you go to the next slide? Go to the next slide, please. Okay. This is the slide that shows the stock market capitalization of equities as of September 17, 2021. US 51.4 trillion, China 12.1, 5, Japan 7.3, Hong Kong 6.3, UK 3.6, India 3.44, and France 3.3. We are in striking distance of overtaking UK in stock market capitalization over next several years. Of course, it depends on the market behavior and a lot of other factors as well, but that's the trend. Now, suggestion that I have for the AEP is that India should selectively open up its stock markets, both the equity markets and debt markets, for some of the AEP countries' companies and governments to use Indian capital markets to borrow, to issue shares, to list their companies, and so on, just the way we are doing it elsewhere. And I think hopefully this will be in a suggestion that will be taken into consideration. Next, please. Connectivity. First was what the difference was. The physical, digital, human, and so on. India's policies are heavily focused on vastly enhancing connectivity, both internally and with countries in the AEP, Indo-Pacific region, and beyond. I won't go too deep into this because we don't have much time. Sagarmala, Bharatmala, Udan Yojana, Indian Railways. The minister gave some select examples, so I'll skip over very quickly. Next one, please. This is the Sagarmala program. Port modernization, very important. Port connectivity, the roads to the ports. Port-led industrialization, the coastal economic zones. Many of the world's prosperous cities are in coastal areas, and we have not given much thought consciously to develop coastal areas and coastal community development. So that's the Sagarmala program, and it's estimated that potential logistic cost savings of INR 35 to 40,000 crore per annum by 2025 with Sagarmala program. Next, please. Okay, this is the Sagarmala network, and you can see these are major ports, minor ports, new major ports, and so on, all across India's vast coastline. We are now going to be doing the port development, connecting them, and rail, road, air, all the and waterways, inland waterways, connectivity that the minister mentioned are being given a systematic, integrated attention. Next, please. Okay, these are coastal economic zones that will come up around the region. And with the coast, for example, I'm part of a company which has a factory in Gujarat, and the Mundra port is only about 40 kilometers away. So 5 years ago, we will send everything to Mumbai, to JNPT. Now, we don't go to JNPT, we just send through Mundra. We also get our imports from Mundra. So we will get now more competition, more modernization, and so on of ports, and saving in logistic cost, because we are saving a lot by not going to JNPT and just going 40 kilometers just west of us to Mundra. Next, please. Next, please. Yeah, this is Bharatmala. When I was young and growing up, India never had this kind of density of roads. Bharatmala is changing the face of India and improving the connectivity a great deal. Next, please. While the focus is on port development, as I said, other areas should be considered as well, including Udan. Again, the minister has mentioned this. This is on an all India basis. Next, please. Next, please. These are plans Among the plans under UDAN, we have Jawahar Airport and the Navi Mumbai Airport. Those are going to change the dynamics of the two regions, of the Maharashtra region, Mumbai, that region, and UP region. This is the improving connectivity, the multimodal freight movement. We have 7 waterway terminals on River Brahmaputra that the minister mentioned. So we can go to the next one. Okay, this is he also mentioned about Nepal, Bhutan, Myanmar, and Bangladesh, how the movement may occur. Next, please. Okay. Safe supply chains or semiconductor is another addition to the AEP's future plans. So we already talked about Quad. They've already agreed now. We are going to move into this particular area as an important area of cooperation, both economic and security, and to diversify supply chains, not be too dependent on one country. That's very important. That's part of the premise behind Atmanirbhar globalization that India has adopted. Okay, next, please. Okay, India is participating in ports abroad. One important part is with Indonesia, things that we are doing, which were not before thought of as important, and the way we are developing Andaman and Nicobar Islands, which are very close to Indonesia and very close to Straits of Malacca, through which 1/3 of India's trade passes. So Straits of Malacca, that's Southeast Asia, is so important for us, and we are doing the port participation abroad. Okay, next, please. Okay, just next, please. The Myanmar port initiatives minister has mentioned. Next, please. Okay, and he mentioned Chittagong and others as well. Cargo ferry service between India and Maldives has been launched, will increase tourism, and so on. Next, please. Okay. The Northeast region is given key importance. That's the third part. Next, please. Yeah, just next, please. Now that we have talked a lot about Northeast, just go ahead. Next, please. The one thing that Minister had not mentioned was that India is mapping forest gap areas, exploring expansion of the land area for horticulture, identification of wetlands, diversion of floodwater, and assessment of bamboo resources for livelihood. Northeast can be our key hub for bamboo, and that bamboo economy is going to have a lot of benefits. Next, please. Yeah, next, please. I mentioned oil palm, rubber, and so on. Next, please. Next, please. Okay, again, the next, please. Okay, this is the bridge that the minister was talking about. It's a spectacular, India's longest bridge over Brahmaputra River. Next, please. Okay. The next, please. Okay, next, please. So again, all this has been mentioned, so no point. Let me come to concluding remark. India's AEP has distinctive features which are designed to help India in strategically enhancing connectivity, create new growth node in the Northeast, many growth nodes there, and obtain more evenly balanced gains from trade through greater reciprocity, and expand its agenda towards broader economic and strategic objectives relevant for the 21st century. The geo-economic, strategic and geo-economic situation is however evolving in a complex manner, and competence, flexibility, and long-term focus on addressing India's development and environmental challenges will have to be kept in mind. India has every interest in having environmentally sustainable uh, development. And as was mentioned, Northeast, Andaman Nicobar, the environmental sensitivity will have to be taken into account. The AEP and related initiatives are designed to increase India's relevance to the world and for India to become even more integrated with the global economy and world affairs. Next, please. The universities and research organizations are strongly urged to undertake policy relevant research on various aspects of the AEP and including in the Northeast, how to accelerate it as a growth node, and more research on Assam, and because Assam is 2/3 of the population of Northeast, and how Assam can contribute to the rest of the Northeast, that would be useful as well. So I do urge, since this is a university audience, to take this topic on board and do a meaningful, policy relevant, rigorous research on these areas. Thank you for your patience. Dhanyawad. Namaskar.
Thank you, sir, for the very informative insight on the issue and providing your opinions on India's actions towards achieving the goals set out in the policy and expansion of the international linkages in the Southeast Asian region through through enhancement of connectivity and through various trade and economic agreements. Now, I request Dr. Subhash Chandra Pandey, former Special Secretary, Ministry of Commerce and Industries, Government of India, to address the topic, India's tactics policy vis-a-vis infrastructure development of Northeastern region and foreign trade. Sir has worked in the Ministry of Finance for 10 years as a Deputy Secretary, as a Director, and also as an officer on special duty from 1994 to 2007, handling various budget and expenditure management. In 1999, he took the initiative to start the work on the Historic Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act, and also oversaw the initial years of the implementation of the Act. During this eventful stint, Sir has also handled diverse subjects like the preparation of budgets, reappropriations and supplementary demands for grants, government borrowings and guarantees, small savings, tax devolution to the states, center's consent for states borrowing, the 10th, 11th, and the 12th Finance Commissions, and also the 11th and the 12th five-year plans. Over to you, sir.
Excuse me, sir, you're on mute.
Sir, your mic is off.
Okay. Thank you for your generous introduction. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. There are obvious advantages and disadvantages of being the last speaker. Dr. Rajkumar, Ranjan Singh, our Honorable MOS External Affairs and Education, Professor Mukul Asher, and Dr. Diptimoni Boruah have given copious inputs on the nuts and bolts, the implications of Act East policy. So that simplifies my job to highlight and summarize with some supplementary points on industrialization of Northeastern region as an integral component of Act East policy. You see, when we talk about Look East and Act East policy, the implied narrative is about finding ways and means of connecting India with ASEAN countries. And in that sense, when we started the engagement with ASEAN with this policy in 91, we became a sectoral dialogue partner in 92. In 96, the relationship was upgraded to a full dialogue partnership. In 2002, we became summit level partner, and in 2012, we became a strategic partner. We signed free trade agreement in both goods, and there is a increasing engagement with associated challenges and concerns coming in. So in this setup, when we talk about whatever we saw from the previous sessions, the talk about Look East and Act East is gradually coming to, we are seeing emerging signals that this is moving from Act East to actually Act Indo-Pacific. And that is a tremendous enlargement in the scope of this ambitious project. And we have to look at what are the development connectivity for loosening of the controls, unnecessary controls that may be there in terms of a trade and investment, and to ensure that the India and ASEAN together that account for about 1/4 of global population, but they are contributing only about 5% of global GDP. Whereas we know that before at least before the Southeast Asian currency crisis in mid-90s, they were leading with export-led growth called tiger economies. So today, when together it is only 5% of global GDP with 1/4 of global population, it means that there is a great potential to unlock the hidden wealth, hidden economic well-being, and also bringing succor to the people. So in that sense, when we want to look east or look beyond, look Indo-Pacific, there are two ways of it. We can look east via the prism of sea routes, which has been the traditional link, very strong link, and the coastal states' relative prosperity is a proof of that. But India cannot look east or act east externally without looking at the northeastern region. It contributes about 3% of country's GDP, although about 10% of area is there. There have been a very special historical problems. A large area is connected to the mainland through a small corridor, Siliguri corridor, called Chicken's Neck. And that creates a lot of connectivity issues which cannot be resolved without the cooperation of our neighboring sovereign countries. And even though, for example, BBIN project, IMT projects, recently advancements have been made in these, the actual on-ground progress is not as much as we would like to see. And this opening of this region, both in terms of air connectivity, rail connectivity, inland water connectivity, that is where a lot of focus has been given in last few years, and we are seeing the results of every now and then one or the other project is getting commissioned, inaugurated, and it is raising the potential for economic development. On the industrialization front, that we can always see that the things that are produced in mainland, if there is a connectivity through land, air, and the rail route and land waterways, the mainland production can move to northeast and beyond. But we also want that within the limits of preservation of fragile ecology of the northeastern region, in preserving the great cultural heritage, the ethnic diversity, there any issue of development, any initiative on economic development has to take care of these aspects to be successful on ground. The solutions that are tried and tested elsewhere do not ipso facto succeed in such an environment. And that has been our experience in the past. When I was in Commerce and Industry Ministry, we were running from 2007 a program of Northeast industrialization, which also extended to Sikkim, and a similar program was there for other Himalayan states. So what we were doing was giving incentives, fiscal incentives to set up new industries in the region. The incentives included capital investment subsidy. A part of the capital investment was given back in cash refund as a subsidy. Interest subvention, interest subsidy if the high cost credit was accessed. Insurance subsidy, excise exemption or excise subsidy, and income tax. But despite this, when we from 2007, a 10-year after that, in 2007, 17, when we reviewed, we found that the kind of industrialization it has promoted in northeastern region was not what we would have liked to see. First of all, in some of the industries that had got big benefit out of these schemes were polluting industries. And then the regional concentration within the region, the industrialization had been concentrated in few pockets. So it was not well dispersed. So a massive exercise was taken. And in 2017, we revamped and announced a new scheme, Any Ideas, which also has many of these components. But by then, one of the changes had taken place, that GST had come in place of the earlier excise regime. So earlier, whatever units were producing and they were exempt from excise duty, they were refunded whatever excise duty they paid. The excise duty was no longer in place and it had been subsumed in GST. So one of the component in the new policy of industrialization was that out of the total GST, whatever is the central share, the 58% is the central share and 42% goes to states. So the 58% central share, the government said, we will refund it to the units. And similarly, in income tax benefits, etc., were also liberalized to incentivize that the particular type of industries are promoted. A negative list was made so that there is a de-emphasis on polluting industries, and we can look up to a sustainable development. And that has seen we are having more of horticulture, pharma, food processing, tourism, healthcare, and well-being industries. In recent years, the bamboo and jute have also emerged as a strong inputs for sustainable development. And the amendment to the Indian Forest Act, which declassified bamboo, it was earlier classified as a tree, and therefore it was under the control of Forest Department. So it was removed from its definition of tree and treated as a grass, open to community ownership and exploitation. The jute also, we have intense competition with the neighboring Bangladesh, both in West Bengal and in northeastern region. Jute industry offers tremendous scope for livelihood generation as well as economic value creation. So the industrialization strategy that we are following is to maintain the without any adverse impact on the fragile ecology of the region, and take advantage of the expanding infrastructure, the network of regional connectivity. About a dozen airports are on the path of being modernized. The rail network is expanding, new bridges are coming up, and very soon we would have enough to take care of that disadvantage the industrial units located in the region had vis-a-vis their counterparts in the mainland, that they had poor access, poor connectivity. Therefore, in terms of access to raw material and access to markets, they were disadvantaged by lack of connectivity. Interestingly, the older schemes of industrialization also included a large amount of transport subsidy. So the element is there, but the requirement would go down as the connectivity infrastructure improves. So now the emphasis will shift on how do we create export hubs, how do we create product development, packaging and processing industries that comply with export markets and lead to further industrial development. In terms of infrastructure projects, Honorable Minister has highlighted the progress achieved. The rail projects are also moving at a very fast pace. But I want to highlight a couple of aspects on these foreign trade and investment aspects, which Professor Asher touched in great detail. He mentioned the sensitivity that arose out of the free trade agreement we had with the ASEAN countries. And in retrospect, we found that somewhere they were not sufficient safeguards against the entry of unintended goods coming via third-party countries. So if you say that export or import from a certain country is allowed duty-free, and a third country sends its goods in nearly very marginal value-added form requires from this originating country, it damages the very spirit of FTA. It is not that the FTA is wrong, but there have been instances and concerns about possible and observed misuse of the FTA provision. So therefore, we are now talking about more balanced renegotiation of treaties on trade and investment. He mentioned about the capital market entry and the record level the stock market has reached within the striking distance of UK capital market. It is a matter of deep satisfaction that from the early 90s and early more than 2 decades ago, we had the ignominy of suffering some security market scams. But since then, the securities market has come a long way. It has grown gradually big, and there is a general international recognition about the depth of the market, the prudential regulation of the market, and gradual intolerance for shady money. So that it is a more and more cleaner money is finding its way, and more investors are getting connected to the stock market. And I foresee that the suggestions that Professor Asher has made would find favor in terms of our increasing economic engagement with the Act East policy countries. So with these, I would like to conclude. Just the couple of points on the policy aspects of how we proceed in this towards the implementation. As the historical development show that we have had constraints, resource constraints in funding the kind of infrastructure that is needed, large infrastructure projects. We also had resource constraints in implementing the kind of big industrialization programs that we would have liked to see. And our whole approach to policy making has been therefore perforce gradual, determined by resource giving. And that means that unless there is a balancing of resources or augmentation of resources by rationalizing other less priority areas, we cannot see that. And there, I am very glad to see that since 2014, when we converted the policy from look east to act east policy, there has been very distinct, massive resource infusion in the northeastern region and in infrastructure development. And that makes me quite sanguine that we would see these initiatives will bear fruits in the coming days, and our economic integration with the east countries will increase. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the very enlightening perception on the issue and the way you have stated out the narratives of the Act's policies such as trade, industrial and investment incentives, and also the importance of advancement of regional infrastructure and the various facets which is associated with it. Through the series of lectures, we learned that for the true transformation and integration of the Northeast into the economic map of the world, effective implementation of this policy is indispensable. Thus, the urgent need to assess the real progress and improvements that have happened towards realizing the goals of this strategic policy, while also acknowledging the hurdles of the same, so that the Act's policy does not become just another policy on paper. This is for the information that for participation certificates, the participants are requested to fill the feedback form, the link to which is provided in the Google Meet chat box and in the comment section in the YouTube description. And alternatively, you can also scan the QR code as shown on the screen. The information must also be correctly provided so as to avoid any kind of confusion. With this, we come to an end to today's program. And lastly, I request Dr. Ashutosh Mishra, who is the Officer on Special Duty, the Delhi School of Public Policy and Governance, University of Delhi, to kindly deliver the vote of thanks and formally close the event. Over to you, sir.
Dr. Ashutosh, you are muted.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. It is my proud privilege to propose a vote of thanks on behalf of National Law University and Judicial Academy, Assam, and Delhi School of Public Policy and Governance, Institution of Eminence, University of Delhi. Today we have discussed a very important topic, Act East Policy, which is to promote economic cooperation, cultural ties, and development strategies relationship with countries in the Asia Pacific region through continuous engagement at bilateral, regional, and multilateral levels, thereby providing enhanced connectivity to the states of northeastern region. The northeast of India has been a priority in our Act East policy. Act East policy provides an interface between northeast India relating the states of North and the Asian region. Northeastern region is blessed with huge potential of hydropower project where NHPC has played a pivotal role. Today I had read one newspaper and that it has mentioned that with respect to hydropower project, a northeastern state can boost the economy of the whole country. But with respect to Act East policy, they have to clear the blocks with respect to some projects in the particular areas. And with the projects like Tista, Ranjit, Loktek, Dibang, and Subansari, these projects are playing a pivotal role in the country. First of all, I would like to say that both the institution, NLU Assam and DSPPG, are highly thankful and obliged to Honorable Minister Sir Shri Rajkumar Ranjan Singh, Minister of State for External Affairs and Education, Government of India, for giving precious time out of his busy schedule and enlighten us on the pertinent issues. Secondly, I would like to say thanks to Professor Mukul Asher sir, who is international scholar, for accepting our invitation and sharing his idea with respect to transformation from look-is to act-is policies. I want to share my gratitude to Dr. Subhash Chandra Pandey sir, who is renowned speaker, for giving us precious time and enlightening us on the infrastructure development issues. I would like to say thanks to Professor Ahuja sir, who is Vice Chancellor of National Law University, Assam. I am working with him from last 5 years in many capacity, and I think due to his sincerity, integrity, and his hard work, I considered him as an asset for any institution. I also thanks to convener Bharat Mahotsav, and thanks to all the participants and thanks to all the organizers. Jai Hind. Thank you.
Namaskar.
Thank you, sir. I once again thank all the guests today who have graced us and given us their valuable time and giving us their opinion on the topic that we had. I once again remind the participants regarding the certificates. For the Google Meet, kindly access the link that has been provided. And for those who are watching us on YouTube live stream, kindly access the YouTube description where the link has been provided. I thank you again to everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, the deadline to submit the form is 6:20 p.m.